Gentlemen, it is now 5:30 p.m., Monday, April 23rd, 2018, and the meeting of the City Council of Paris is now in session. First item is invocation by Father Craig Reed. Come up, please. Thank you. Everyone stand, please.
Mayor Clifford and members of City Council, Father Craig Reed, Rector of Holy Cross Church, President of Lamar County Christian Ministers Association, and would like to extend to all of you on behalf of the LCCMA and the Paris Ministers Alliance an invitation to join us on May 3rd, that's a Thursday, for the National Day of Prayer. We'll gather at noon at the courthouse. Thank you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, you've created all that you might love them and they might love you. We pray your blessing upon this city and all who dwell in it. For our leaders, grant them wisdom. Grant them the grace to carry out the work that you have set before them. For those who protect and serve us, grant them protection. Grant them the skill needed to carry out their tasks among us. And for all who live in this city, grant us a sense of common good, care and love for each other, that we might live at peace, encourage one another, and build up this community for the love of your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the Citizens Forum. Now, there are some items on the agenda that have a public hearing. So if you're going to be talking about something, you can wait till the public hearing, unless you. But for the public forum, I'm opening the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personnel appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. The Citizens Forum is now open. Anyone wishing to address the council, please step forward, state your name and address, and then you'll have 2 minutes. Anyone lose any glasses?
There's somebody else's name up here before mine. I don't know if they want to speak first or not. Richard Smith, did you want to speak first? Go ahead. Okay. Mr. Mayor, council members, John, I'm Chris Dukes. I live at 4075 Sunset View. There's a couple of items on the agenda tonight that I would like to address later in those public forum sections or public hearing sections. However, I'm currently acting as the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Paris for y'all. And I would just like to read the opening part of the ordinance for the Historic Preservation Commission, which the former City Council back in 2002 adopted. It states, City Council hereby declares that as a matter of public policy, the protection, preservation, and enhancement of the districts and landmarks of architectural, archaeological, cultural, and historic importance is necessary to promote the economic, cultural, educational, and general welfare of the citizens of Paris. It goes on to state that this article of ordinance is to protect and enhance the district's landmarks, which represent distinctive elements of the city's historic, architectural, and cultural heritage. Historic preservation is critically important, and it is an economic engine for the community. You have 2 items on your agenda tonight that will dovetail with historic preservation and would enhance the efforts from that point of view that would help promote economic development within the city. And I look forward to the public hearing on those 2 items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name's Richard Smith. We are the owners and the proprietors of Parish Creations. And I'm going to give these to you and let y'all pass them down. There's one for each of you. What we're coming before you about is these empty buildings that are around Paris. And some of them got trees growing out of them. We make about 90% of all the souvenirs for Paris, for everybody else in town that has souvenirs. And people come into Paris and they're seeing these empty buildings for no reason. Right now, within 2 to 3 blocks of the plaza up there, you've got 6 buildings that has no roof in them. You've got another one right across over here that's got a hole about yay big around, rotted out right in the front door. If a policeman or a fireman went in there, they're going down about 8 to 10 foot into the basement. And I just can't understand why something can't be done about these empty buildings around the plaza area. We tried to lease one several years ago. Couldn't get no one to respond to us. We've talked to another 2 or 3 people that owns them, and they will not lease them or rent them or anything else. And it's just don't look kosher for a city the size of Paris, sitting there with empty buildings, no commercial income from them to speak of. And I just can't understand why y'all can't enact something to make the owners do something with them. And that's my beef. Oh, if you got any questions, I'll answer them for you. But like I said, within 4 or 5 city blocks, there's in an excess of 20 empty buildings of the plaza.
Thank you.
Carol Huffnagel, 720 Bunker Street, and kind of on that same deal, Pine Mill next to the surgery center, I don't know who owns that lot, but I would like to see code enforcement. I mean, when there's a popular route that strangers and local people drive all the time, those owners should be made to clean it up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jill Drake, 3605 Summerhill, Paris. I'm here today for item number 17, the vacant building registry, and I'm unable to stay much later tonight, so I wanted to go ahead and let you know my thoughts at this time. Those of you who know me know that I am a great supporter of our community, and I try to work in various projects to bring good things here to Paris and Lamar County, and I am particularly interested in our downtown area. I know that whenever there is controversy in any city, there are always 2 sides or many sides to every story. I'm a prosecutor. I know that. I do that for a living. But oftentimes, a city council has to make decisions that are good for the community that make some individuals upset, and that's just the way that it is. And as I've watched this council and previous councils over the 10 years that I've lived here, I feel like the council has really faced some difficult decisions about downtown, and I think that you've made some hard decisions and you've made some people mad, but it's all been going forward and good progress has been made. And right now, with the momentum, people are interested in downtown, and Pine Bluff is looking so much better. And I think right now there is such good momentum going that we really need to address this issue about the vacant buildings downtown. our retail, our service, our loft properties need to be supported, or we are going to have a downtown area of just dilapidated buildings. And nobody wants that. Many other cities in Texas have adopted this type of registry or ordinance, and communities have done it in different ways. They all haven't followed what is being proposed to you tonight. But I think this is a good solution. You've got San Antonio, El Paso, Dallas, Fort Worth, all doing this. Yes, okay, everybody says, oh, those are the big towns. Well, the smaller towns are doing it as well. We've got Duncanville, Denison, Arlington, Frisco, little tiny Cuero, Texas, and even Winsboro with a population of 3,200. I looked it up today because I couldn't believe that they even had a vacant building registry and ordinance. So why do we need it? Because as I was listening to the prayer before we started, we have people who protect and serve us. Do we want to send firefighters into a vacant building when they have no idea the floor plan of that building? How are they going to go there and maybe put out a fire or do something if they have no idea what they're going to encounter in a building that's been sitting vacant?
Thank you for your comments. I've let you go well over 2 minutes, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Randy Hyder. I live at 823 Church Street, and I'm here to address the same agenda item number 17. You know, as a young person in Paris, I drive around downtown and I'm like, this is nothing like it could be. And the reason is because we have so many vacant buildings, and people that are younger, they're choosing not to call this place home. They're moving away. And if we want to attract new industry, new people, we need a vibrant downtown. The first thing these companies that are relocating and thinking about Paris look at is our downtown. They're like, what can downtown bring to our people we're gonna transfer here? They're gonna drive around town, they're gonna do their market research. When they see these things, they're like, not the place for us. It's not just about having a workforce, it's about having a community that's vibrant, that can represent people. And you know, it's sad the way that it is. And it's 2018, guys. We got to really act before it's too late. And I really hope you guys really address that. And I know you guys love our town. You're representing here. This is volunteer. You're choosing to be here out of your own free will. And I really hope you guys take my generation, the millennials, into consideration, because whenever everyone else passes away, who's left? So I really hope you guys consider this as a viable thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glee Emmett. I live at 3065 Aspen, Paris, Texas. I am the president of the Downtown Association. I'm also on the Main Street Board, and I'm on the Historic Preservation Committee. I'm the other side of Randy's comment. I'm on the other side of the thing. I've been here for 40 years. I came here because I wanted to be here. I also have a business in town, and it is hard for businesses to have curb appeal when they have to go past businesses that have no curb appeal because the windows are dirty, they're broken, and that next door to me, I know what is stored in that building. And you know that I went and cleaned the windows and put something up so people couldn't see how bad it was inside that building. I won't mention the name of the owner of that building, but I would not want a policeman or a fireman to go into that building and find what I know is in that building. So one of the things I want to address is item number 17, obviously. We need addresses on these buildings. We need a registry so we know what the plan is in that building, who owns that building. If in the case of a water main breaking, who we can contact to get into that building. I won't take up all of your time, but I'm here in favor of that proposition.
Thank you.
My name is Sybil Colson, 819 Lamar Avenue. I also wish to speak to number 17. I believe that the city is taking too broad a sweep. It's affecting not only those who have empty buildings, but the rest of us who have buildings down there. I think this is a backdoor attempt to do away with the ability to store your supplies or whatever that you need downtown. I don't think that the city should criminalize code violations, nor do I think they should require owners in downtown to have excessive liability limits, nor have to pay fees beginning at $550 a year for their buildings down there. And as we've talked about, there's empty buildings and the city's done, you know, this I think is a result of some of the city's previous actions that they have done through the years. And I don't think they should sweep so broadly as to those of us who have buildings down there with roofs.
Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, my name is Larry Shank. I reside at 3765 Dawn Drive here in Paris. I'm going to be a disappointment to you here. I'm not going to talk about bad buildings. I'm here again to ask you, as you begin your budgetary deliberations for next year, to consider a COLA increase for retired city employees. It has been 11 years now since such an increase has been approved, and I know they would appreciate your consideration for some kind of COLA increase. Thank you very much. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Seeing none, the citizens forum is now closed. Brings us to the consent agenda. Does any council member have any items on the consent agenda they wish to pull off for additional discussion?
Yes, I wish to pull item 7, the monthly financial report, please.
Okay. You want to discuss it right now, or will you pass the consent agenda and then we'll discuss that afterwards?
That's fine.
Just discuss it right now.
Oh, okay. I wanted to look at the budget overage for the city council budget, and trying to get to that. The amount is approximately $26,000, is that right, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I understand water heaters go out, things like that, that are not in our control. But how much of that overage results from the election that was held last November?
Well, that election cost about $11,900. We had $8,000 budgeted for the city council election in May. It's over $3,000 to $4,000 over budget already from the special election, plus whatever we'll spend in May, which usually is around $5,000 or $6,000.
Okay, so total for those 2 elections would be approximately
Approximately $17,000.
$17,000, when 8 would have been just for the May election.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Normally it's somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 to hold a normal election.
Okay. I just would hope that in the future, councils will look at combining more elections rather than having one in November and one in May, when we could still hear citizens' input and wishes, but not go over the budgets quite that much.
Part of that was too, the council also wanted to do some education on that issue, and so there was some, a mail out prepared and sent out, and that's included in that election cost. So,
But again, was not budgeted.
right. The actual election cost just over $6,000, I think, and then you have the newspaper advertisements and that brochure thing that was sent out, ran it on up to the total number.
Okay, we'll try to do better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you, is that all you wanted to say about that then?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're better. I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Brings us to item number 11 on the regular agenda. Discuss and act on a resolution to deny the distribution cost recovery factor filing application proposed by Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC. Gene?
Okay. On April 5th, Encore Electric Delivery requested a revenue increase of just over $19 million. The city, Paris, and other cities would like some time to study that and bring back a recommendation to their respective councils on what to do. In order to do that, we need to initially deny the rate increase to give us time to do that study, because if we don't deny it, from 60 days from the day that they applied for it, it goes into effect automatically. And so we need a little additional time. So if the council would authorize the denial of that, that will put it on hold long enough for us to do that evaluation.
Any discussion on this? Pretty straightforward. I make a motion to approve a resolution to deny the DCRF application proposed by Encore.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next, item number 12, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and consider an ordinance regarding the petition of Abe Enns for a change in zoning from an agricultural district to a commercial district with a specific use permit for trailer sales in the City of Paris, Block 341, Lot 2, Loop 286, and Highway 24, Acres 2.0, being located at 2975 South Church Street.
This will be me.
Okay.
This is a change from agriculture to commercial district with an SUP. Ag here for the most part is a holding, and in any case this is not used or planned for agricultural. The applicant wishes to use the area for trailer sales. It is surrounded by like uses. It's across the street from a very, very large light industrially zoned area. It is located just beyond the loop. And there is where it looks like. Planning and Zoning Commission met on this on April the 2nd. The applicant himself spoke in favor of it, as did the staff. There was no one spoke during the public hearing in opposition, and staff recommends to council that you approve this evening.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this, please come forward.
My name is Connie Justice.
Mr. Justice,
No, this is not the one she.
No. This is not the correct item. This is a change in zoning for a trailer to allow trailer sales. Yeah. Okay. We'll get there in a minute. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak at this public? Seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing. Any discussion on the council on this item? I make a motion that we approve the requested zoning change from agricultural to commercial with a specific use permit.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Item number 13, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and consider an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to create the new definitions for veterinary clinics and kennels for both small animals and large animals, and specify zoning districts in which they shall be allowed. John, you want to discuss this
yes,
for us?
sir. Specifically, this creates two new definitions, one for large animal clinic and one for a small animal clinic. We don't have a definition in the current ordinance at this point. It also expands it slightly so that large animal veterinary clinics may be allowed in general retail with an SUP, which of course controls certain standards of construction and operation, and also allows small animal clinics in an office environment. We allow medical clinics in office environments now, office zoning, and so we recommend that be included for veterinary clinics too. The Planning and Zoning Commission met in a special meeting on April the 17th. They recommended by a vote of 4-1 that this amendment be approved, and staff concurs with approval.
Okay, and this is the one you were wanting to speak, so I'll open the public hearing on item number 13. Anyone wishing to speak regarding this, please come forward. This is the one you can speak on.
Now, this is not about a specific property, just to be clear. This is about changing the.
This is about this is about changing the ordinance to allow a new definition for veterinary clinics and kennels. So that's what the discussion needs to be about, please.
Pardon me for being scatterbrained. Next month, I'm going to be 75, and it's beginning to toll on me. I had prepared notes, and I walked off and left it on the printer, so I'll just have to wing it the best I can. The proposed ordinance, like I say, excuse me for being 75. The proposed ordinance is affecting several hundred properties of people that are in general retail now. I think I counted like 200 or 300 properties down Clarksville and Lamar that are affected. And I feel like people that own properties now in general retail should be given the opportunity to say yes or no. I know it was posted on the website, but, the average citizen doesn't look at the website every day. So since I think it's changing the values and the uses of their property, and there are people on Clarksville and Lamar that are residents that live there, So I think they ought to be given the opportunity to look at it. The other issue is the person that benefits most from this change in ordinance actually voted on it. So I feel like that's a conflict of interest, that maybe the proposal from the planning and zoning maybe wasn't valid because, that person voted. Two other people voted that seemed to have a business relationship, So if those people had recused themselves, there wouldn't have been a vote because there wouldn't have been a quorum. But I drastically oppose it, and I appreciate if you would give it some consideration, because I don't feel like it's fair to the average citizen, the fact that the person that's going to benefit was even on the committee puts me at a disadvantage and the average citizen at a disadvantage. So I ask you to please oppose it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just
Yeah.
provide a bit of explanation. I don't ever like to come across as arguing or debating with somebody during citizens' input or during a public hearing, certainly. But to clarify, we talked a little bit about this at the P&Z meeting last week, and that's the comment about, or the concern about, this affects all properties that are currently zoned general retail. It does not, because it requires a special use permit. So it doesn't change those people at all. You have to have a general retail with an SUP, and if you don't have a general retail with an SUP, your zoning doesn't change if you approve this tonight. So that doesn't affect them at all. If it did, it would give them additional uses, not fewer uses in any case. Also, just to clarify, we're required by law to advertise in a newspaper of local jurisdiction, which we do, not just post on the website. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and he can defend himself, but in defense of your Planning and Zoning Commission, because they work for you, this is not a zoning ordinance, if approved or not approved, that has a special financial benefit to a single individual. A single individual is not gaining or losing based on their service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And beyond that, the person in question here voted against it. That's why it was a 4-1 vote. So he actually voted no against this. So even if there was any kind of a conflict, he intentionally voted no. So just wanted to explain that part.
Okay, anyone else wish to come up and talk, please do so.
Hello, I'm Dr. James O'Brien, and John already spoke kind of on my behalf. I am on the P&Z, and I wanted to give you a little bit of history about how this came about. I am applying for a zoning change, which is the next item on the agenda, but this came about after reviewing our local ordinances, as I've done in other cities that I've been in, and same thing happened here, is that I found that veterinarians have been grouped together with kennels. If you review the ordinances, all other professionals, doctors, dentists, physicians, and lawyers are held to a different standard than veterinarians. The reason that this is important is not so much the professionalism, but where it allows us and where it allows our city to go. We have many pet owners here. Many are desiring a 24-hour emergency practice, which I would like to help bring here. Most 24-hour emergency practices, or at least after-hours practices, need to be in a general retail area. They cannot here because it's not allowed by the ordinance. This is an old ordinance that went back on the days when it was written of our agrarian society, where most animals were large animal. And so it's been passed along to say in commercial for the reasons as is appropriate, to be on the outer banks away from residences. It's no longer that way. So this just makes sense to separate the two. Of course, the large animals still need to be out there, but we are a much more aggregated society, much closer together. So it's not reasonable to ask somebody to go out to the outer banks of our city where all of our commercial properties lie in order to seek 24 hours, to seek emergency care. This is for the benefit of everyone. It came about, and the reason I brought it to everyone's attention is because I happened to be on a separate issue applying for a zoning change and noted it and said, hey, it's time to bring us up to date. And I did vote against it for a couple different reasons, but it goes back to the definitions, and I think they need to be a little bit more clear to separate veterinarians and kennels, not do both of those together. They need to be grouped separately, I think one level more to help out. That doesn't have to happen now. I think we can move on with this and then address that a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak on this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. I'll open up for a discussion on the council here. Anyone wishes to have a discussion on this item? I'm in favor of this. I think this makes perfect sense, and I think it does bring us up to date. It allows a veterinary clinic to be in more of the location where, by the modern practice, that it should be. So I intend to support this. Anyone else?
I applaud the Planning and Zoning Commission for looking at least starting a revision of some of the ordinances, kind of bringing some of the ordinances up to modern day use, for lack of a better term, because some of it is a little is very confusing, and I know that they've been working on trying to get it the ordinance is a little more user-friendly,
yeah.
And the zoning ordinance is a little more user-friendly, so
Yeah.
I too would support this.
You know,
With my vote.
I've lived in several cities where you'd have a dentist office right next door to a veterinarian's office. You know, it's attractively built, well-kept, and we certainly hope that that would be the case here, but it makes sense that you can have small animal offices in your more convenient places.
Anyone else wish to give an opinion on this, or if not, I'll entertain a motion on this.
I make a motion we accept the changes to the zoning to create new definitions for veterinarian clinics and kennels for both small and large animals, and specify zoning districts in which they will be allowed.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay. That item passes. Next item is item number 14. Discuss, conduct a public hearing, and consider an ordinance regarding the petition of James O'Brien, DVM, for a change in zoning from a general retail district to a general retail district with a special use permit for a veterinarian clinic in the City of Paris, Block 32C, Lot 2, being located at 1029 Lamar Avenue. And this is... you want a discussion on it? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Just very quickly, this is obviously for a new veterinary clinic to be located on Lamar Avenue at this location. It's currently a vacant lot. The zoning request was originally commercial, but was changed to general retail with a special use permit. Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last Tuesday, April 17th, approved it with a vote of 4-0, or recommend to the council by a vote of 4-0. One member stepped down from that vote and did not participate in that discussion as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. There were basically 4 overall conditions as part of the special use permit. That is that there are no outdoor kennels or outdoor pens for large animals. That was never part of the applicant's plans in any case. There was also to be a vegetative screening, which would be on the west side between the new building, this side over here, the new building, and the residential, multifamily residential immediately to the west. There would be a requirement that the property would have to comply with the residential noise ordinance that we have in place at this point. And then also that it would comply with other requirements that were included in the presentation that was made that I think you have in your packets, the building layout and the parking lot layout and so forth, that they would also be complied with. Again, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, and staff concurs.
All right, we need to open this public hearing for item number 14. So anyone wishing to address the council regarding this, please step up.
Okay, you notice, it said it was going to be on the west side of that lot. If you look in the little blue folder that I gave you, the proposed site plan proposes it to be 10 foot off the property line. Well, I'm not sure how far my property is off the line, whether it's 5 foot or 10 foot, but either way, it's going to be like 15 to 20 feet between the veterinary clinic and the windows of my tenants, at least 4 or 5 of them. I'm not sure how far it'd go down. It won't go the full length of the building. But I mentioned, well, it's going to be within so many feet of a tenant's bedroom window. And my other tenant said, and it's going to be that far from my kitchen window also. And I don't see how you can cut the sound down or how you can control flies or mosquitoes or whatever when it's that close to somebody's window. And, that property was there many, many years ago. And when it was put in, it was all residential. There was a house next door. There was no commercial. I know things are expanding, but, please consider what this does to somebody that lives there. In those apartments that are going to be directly affected, presently are 3 little kids living there. A couple of them are little boys, and, horses and dogs attract kids. I think it'd be a nuisance to the what's called an attractive nuisance when you got something that attracts kids that might get them hurt. Houston, Lamar Avenue is busy. You pull horse trailers in that lot, somebody's going to get run over. I mentioned it to a lady the other day, and she says, well, I've got 4 horses, and I'm not about to pull my horse trailer up Lamar Avenue. She said it's too dangerous. The back street of Houston Street, the kids come in at 10th, the school bus is at 10th in Houston, and they get on the bus, they get off the bus. Some of them have their parents with them, some of them don't. I just think it'd be a hazard to them. I have a petition in your little brochure there that I think I counted 65, may only be 64 names on it. And I have some more, but since I've had some senior moments, I don't know what I did with the other ones. I probably have more than 65 other people who said that they didn't think that was a good location for it. There's so many locations that's better suited, for a veterinary clinic where there are not kids around and, it's not residents, people trying to sleep. And the ordinance that you just passed didn't say anything about kennels. It didn't say anything about horse stables. I know this is not his intent to do it at this point in time, but if there's nothing in the zoning that says it can't, it seems to me like it's opened up a big can of worms, that they can go anywhere they want to go, And I happened to be this morning sitting not too far from a veterinary clinic, which you could hear the dogs barking. There were 2 women outside with their dogs on the leash. They were big dogs. A veterinarian doesn't have control over that dog that's out on the lot. He doesn't have control of the trailer that comes in that has manure in it, that has flies and mosquitoes. He doesn't control that. The people coming in controls that. And, even under perfect circumstances, I just don't see how, it could be in a residential area. When I was talking to the people in the neighborhood, the most often first response was, you got to be kidding. And the second most response was, who would think that's a good idea? It may be a perfect idea, but it just doesn't appear so. I feel like it'll do irreparable damage to the people in the neighborhood, and particularly to my property, because income property is based on how much income you have. I asked a man that was an investor just the other day. I said, well, what do you think my property's worth? and his exact words were, I don't know how much income you have, I don't know how much property, how many apartments you have. He said, I have to know that before I can give you any kind of figure. So, if in the income approach, you take your gross income and you take off your expenses and you come down to a figure, and then you decide what return you want on your money, and you divide that return into your net income, and that's value. So if you have high income, then you have a high value. If you have low income, you have a low value. So not only would this harm my tenants, possibly a health hazard, because I'm very chemically sensitive to chemicals, and you're going to have fly spray and stuff to control flies, which is going to harm my health. Even though I'm not there, I'm on the property daily. But what does it do to the little kids when they are breathing the chemicals, when they're little and they're, they're formative? All I can say is please vote as if this was being put next to your bedroom window. I don't think anyone would voluntarily say this is wonderful, this is going to increase my property value, it's going to increase my right to live a happy life. But I appreciate your vote, and thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Carol Huffnagel, 720 Bunker Street. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I have a son that's a veterinarian. And these veterinarians today put up these establishments, and they are as controlled and clean as our hospital in Paris, Texas. And they do have means of controlling these things. Give them a chance to build it up. We need new industries. We need some good-looking buildings in our community. And as far as barking dogs, I'd like to take people down in my neighborhood. And I have wanted to call the police on neighbors barking dogs when I'm sitting out on my deck trying to enjoy life with a beer or whatever, and nobody's controlling them. But anyway, I wish the doctor good luck.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
I live at 833 East Houston. That would be about approximately 3 blocks. And I've been around horses a lot of my life, and my thought is that the flies are going to increase in the neighborhood, and we don't want horse flies out in the backyard biting us when we're mowing the grass. I appreciate your vote.
Sir, could I get your name, please?
Pardon me?
Could I get your name, please?
Richard Smallwood.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Dr. James O'Brien again. I'm applying for this change. I want to address a few of the issues that have been brought up here. First off, this is a professional veterinary practice. This is not a rodeo, as been described. And I'll do my best to not use any fear or intimidation tactics to persuade you. I understand the problem with horses and the addressing the horses. First off, let me say that there are no other veterinarians around here that are addressing our pretty much agrarian society of the 933 square miles that Lamar County is. I'm the only one that has the equipment and is qualified to do surgery, from colic surgery to orthopedic surgery. We have approximately over 3,000 horses here. Most places, even just to run IV fluids, no other place is able or willing to do that, except on a limited basis. And I can't speak for all other veterinarians here. We're trying to provide a service, again, for the greater good. Okay, we have to remember that this is still Paris, but we're still an agrarian society, and we service a lot of other areas, even into Oklahoma. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're not going to be keeping horses. There's not going to be staying there. They are patients. It's kind of like equating going to the hospital to go for vacation and stay there. You're not going to stay there. Get in, get out. Get better, go home. That's it. As of right now, we don't see a whole lot of horses. We're general retail now. It's not going to really change anything like that. I understand the concerns, and those can easily be mediated. Our plan is also to be the first AHA accredited practice, which is a higher level of accreditation. There are over 3,000 different points that we have to be inspected on in order to achieve this accreditation, and it's going to cost me several thousand to do it, and it will generate no income. It's just a pride thing, and I wanted to assure the citizens and the council that this is something we're electing to do to make this a better place. Part of running a business means running a clean business and being a good neighbor. Okay, our goal is to be a good neighbor and not to have to worry about chemicals. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. They're in and out of my practice all day long. It's a non-issue as far as chemicals, smells, fly sprays. Again, not a rodeo, a professional veterinary practice. I think that should be about it. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions of Dr. O'Brien?
I do.
Go ahead.
Dr. O'Brien, do you have any plans to board any animals at your veterinary clinic?
No more than I do now.
Okay.
I don't board and I don't groom. We never have, and we don't have any plans. I believe in doing one thing well, and we do veterinary medicine and veterinary surgery. That's it.
Now, where you are now, on occasion, you have had horse patients?
Yeah, we broke
Okay.
the law a little bit. Sorry.
Well.
Yes, we did. We had no choice. And I've
Okay.
actually had a horse in my garage at home on IV fluids because they had no other choice.
Your location where you are now is in a shopping center?
Correct.
With professionals and shopping, and if I'm not mistaken, you are adjacent to an apartment
There is one across.
across the way, a little
Yes.
ditch. Okay. So have there been any complaints lodged against you from any of your neighbors with regard to your practices?
No. We
Okay.
actually have several clients that are over there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I was just kind of wondering about those.
Dr. O'Brien, when you have horses, you're typically taking care of one horse at a time. I don't imagine you take care of 2 or 3 at a time. So when you have a horse in your clinic, how many do you anticipate you will have at any given time?
I mean, it could be up to 4, but the economics don't justify that right now. Let me put this in perspective. The entire first year I was open, I vaccinated 1 horse. 1 horse. So we're not looking to be, this is going to be less than probably 0.5% of our business. It's going to be very small. I do it because I love it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And it's just something I can do, so I may as well try to provide it while I'm here. That's it. The majority of our patients are from exotics to dogs and cats. I love all equally, but I enjoy horse surgery. It's fun. That's what I was trained to do. I don't want to. Please don't, anybody listening, please don't think that I don't love your dogs and cats. I do. But I do. You love me just as well. But it's something I can do, and I enjoy doing it, and I'm willing to. But yeah, so to answer your question, it'd be a very small percent. Realistically, what we're trying to do is also make it more affordable. Average colic surgery costs about $6,000 to $8,000. We're hoping to bring that to a more affordable price here on the rare event we do one, maybe in the $3,000 to $4,000 range.
I have a quick question. If doing a surgery on a horse, if something went wrong and you needed to keep the horse, are you going to have the facility there to do so? Or, I mean,
Sure.
like a regular person, you plan to go in for day surgery and home, but if something went wrong, you may have to be kept.
Sure. 2 things. Number one, the first thing is when something goes wrong with colic surgery, major abdominal surgery, it's the best thing to do is get a backhoe. They go wrong really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not our original intent initially. Patients will stay overnight, and in the plans when we get to that point under our SUP is to go back and to allow to build a facility for that. That's not our goal right now.
Okay.
We just want to be able to see horses right now for IV fluids and ship them off and grow into that. That is the idea right now. We don't have the income. I'm a veterinarian. I'm not an MD. I'm not a real doctor. We don't have that type of money or cash flow. We have to grow into that. So we have to start baby steps and be able to provide advanced medicine, IV fluids, things like that. I mean, I can't even file down a horse's teeth. Now, I can do nothing. We can't even test for infectious disease, which is part of a special licensure I have. I can't even pull blood where I'm at right now to check for some infectious disease. So we're starting with the basics.
Dr. O'Brien,
Yes.
are you an Aggie?
I am.
I have a lot of good friends who are Aggies.
That against me?
Somebody out there knows I'm a Longhorn. The pride of the whole universe of Aggies is on you. Are you going to keep this property clean, neat, and attractive?
Absolutely. It's good business. It's no different than I'm doing now. I've been here for 4 years. You have to be a good steward of the citizens. I want to run a good business, and in order to run a good business, you must have a good reputation. You must have a good appearance. I could be a horrible doctor, and nobody would know that. But as long as I look good and look like I know what I'm doing, people are going to come. I'd prefer quite the opposite, and to be good and look good, to be good. So you have to run a good business, just as much as we were mentioning earlier about the downtown. They're talking about this blank slate as they come up. It's not attractive for other businesses. You want it to look vibrant and alive and clean and well kept. Aesthetics are very important. Its first impression is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
Well, a vacant lot is certainly not an asset, and, well-maintained. There are properties around where you're building that are not well-maintained. The grass may be mowed, but the curb is never edged or swept up, and so I think you would be an asset to the neighborhood.
Thank you. That's what we're hoping. We certainly don't want to be a burden. We're hoping to actually increase values. I think if the reports were run in other areas, one would see that when a veterinary practice comes in, or any new building, it actually raises the resale value. It increases. It doesn't inhibit it. Again, I want to go back to the idea of we're not going to be letting a bull out of chute number 3. This is a medical practice.
And I do want to say I have a niece that's a vet in Dallas, and she's in a very prestigious part of Dallas, and you would never know there's a vet clinic there.
And again, that's what we're going to try to do too. The name of my practice is Paris Veterinary Associates, and the idea is to work with my colleagues that are associated with my practice so that we can bring Dr. Garfield, who's a dermatologist here, Dr. Pierce and Pearson, who are ophthalmologists, so people don't have to go to Dallas, especially a lot of my elderly patients that have a hard time getting around. Are there better locations? Maybe. Is this a great location? No. No, this is not a great location. Is this good? It's fair. I'll agree with that. I'll agree that it's not great. Great locations cost a lot of money. I don't have that. I can settle for a fair location. That's a good price and a good location, and be a good steward of my neighbors. Be a good tenant. But we're trying to bring these things to Paris, again, for the common good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item, on the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing and open up for council discussion. I'm very much in favor of this. I've been to Dr. O'Brien's office on many occasions. I've never seen anything but complete cleanliness. I've never heard dogs. I've never seen a fly. And so I think a lot of that's kind of overblown. But I do think it would be an asset in that a current vacant lot would now have a modern building on it. Services that are not currently offered in Paris would be available even from a minor economic prospect, that we would have people perhaps coming to Paris from surrounding areas to visit Dr. O'Brien, and that would be a net benefit for Paris as well. So I don't see a lot of downside to it. I do think that the claims of problems are somewhat overstated, considerably. I think this would be a all-around benefit for Paris. Anyone else have something to say? Well, I'll make a motion that we, change the zoning from a general retail district to a general retail district with a special use permit for a veterinary clinic, as described in the packet here.
I'll second.
All in favor?
To include all the conditions.
Yes, sir.
Yes. To include all the conditions that are stated. And all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Next item, number 15, receive update on immediate and future plans to continue cleanup and maintenance of ditches.
I had requested this agenda item. I had had several people in District 6 and other districts also that had contacted me, sort of wanting to know where we're going. We did a real good job in cleaning up the ditches, and where we're sort of going from there as far as maintaining what we've already done. And then I've had several people along Johnson's Woods that have been concerned about the cleanup, and nothing else has happened, and some of the deterioration that is going on in their backyards. So I requested it just for an update and
Okay,
discussion.
I can give an update on the Johnson Woods Drainage Project. So last year in June, we had a bid opening to replace the sewer and then do some drainage improvements along that channel. And with that, we only had one bidder, and it was basically double the estimated cost of the project. So staff's been working with contractors to see what we can do to try to bring the cost down. And then also we're trying to figure how much savings we're going to have on some of these other bond projects before we're comfortable with proceeding with moving forward with another bid or trying to get this work done if it truly is going to cost that much more than originally anticipated. Some of the things that we're considering are additional access points, maybe getting some additional easements through driveways or access to the channel other than at Clark Lane, because that's one of the contractor's major concern that we've heard from multiple contractors looking at the job. And then also other construction methods rather than just open trench and replace the sewer. One of the biggest things is how do we maintain adequate drainage through the channel while we're digging a trench and replacing the sewer main. So those are some of the challenges with the project. It's just way over our budgeted amount for the job at this time. But as soon as we have, I think I put in the memo, we've got several projects that are due to close out this year, and we'll have a better idea of how much money we're working with left in the bond, see what we can put towards the project.
Have you been back in there to see, because people have been sending me pictures of their property. Have you been back up in there, either one of y'all, to sort of see what's going on, if there's anything that we can do to sort of slow that down any?
We have the tree clearing. We didn't remove any of the stumps. We cut the trees, and so it's wide open to see down the channel where previously you couldn't. It was very overgrown. But all of the stumps were left in place because we didn't want erosion to happen or to worsen until we were ready to proceed with the project. So there was really no ground disturbance with the removal of the trees. I think part of the issue is you see it more clearly now.
Okay.
And then we did have a couple of big rains, and so it's always a possibility when you're dealing with those side slopes. But we do have pre-project pictures, and we've taken pictures every year since this project started. We are keeping an eye on that, but that is all the more reason that we need to find a solution and prepare to move forward with the project as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Now then, kind of go back to the maintenance side of, the city gave us the money to get the projects done. We worked 2 years getting drainage, clearing, grubbing, grading, shaping. In the process of that, we also fought erosion control. There's all kinds of factors that go with that. So the dollars did run out quick. Now, where we're at, are we through? No, by no means are we through. To maintenance what we have, we're small crews. We basically will, and we're doing it now. We're jumping our construction project. People are jumping from, hot spot to hot spot, the worst places that we can hit. And I think y'all seen some of the places we have been. It's a battle, but we do have we've kind of got the city quadrant out and counterclockwise. Every week we've got 2 or 3 guys working to try to maintain the clearing and grubbing that we did. Because it's already getting behind on that. So it's just, we're moving week to week, starting all over again. Sometimes it'll be 2 weeks in one quadrant versus. So our plan is there. It's just trying to get it maintained and stay with it. So.
Well, I appreciate all of the work y'all have done and are continuing to do, and I'm sure the residents do also, but they're just concerned because it's their homes that are affected, and so.
I think we've made great progress. I think with
so
the flooding,
too.
it's
and it's a lot better than it was.
Yes.
But yes, I know we still have a way to go, and it's like everything else, money.
Right.
So I appreciate the update on that.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right. Next item, number 16, discuss the tax increment financing and provide direction to city staff. John, you want to go over this with us?
Yes, sir. Tax increment financing is exactly that's a financing tool. There's a lot of misunderstandings about about tax increment financing. It sometimes gets confused as if it's an incentive that's offered to developers because it does affect development if it works correctly. That's why it was invented once upon a time, 40 years ago or more. And just to explain kind of some of the basics of it fairly quickly, hopefully, the reason it's called a tax increment is because you set a baseline, a benchmark of the property value within this specific area. And you have to define an area called a zone. If you create a tax increment reinvestment zone, all of the money that all the tax, ad valorem tax revenue that's an increase over the benchmark amount is available potentially for financing purposes for development, to aid in development. And I say potentially because it's for a finite period of time, whether it's for 10 years or 5 years or 30 years or 20 years. 20 years is fairly typical if you sell bonds, because 20 is a really common number for bonds, but that's not always the case either, of course. Also, it doesn't have to be 100% of the increment. It can be for 50% or 80% or for 40% or whatever percentage that a board, and a TERS has to have a board, has to have an independent board that's created. So the city council doesn't run that. It has a TERS board of a number of members, perhaps as many as 15 or 17 in some cases. You have to have two things. You have to have a development plan or a project plan, and that's basically what you're going to do with the money. You can't just create a TERS and say, well, we'll figure out a way to spend it. There's always needs. You have to have a plan, what you're going to do, and then you have to have a financing plan, how much it's going to cost, how you're going to pay for it. If you're going to do debt service, for example, you would need to calculate reasonably how long a time you're going to be able to, or you're going to need and have to have development in order to pay the debt back. If you can't do that, you can't pay the debt. If you can't do that, you can't create the TERS. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to sell any bonds to anybody anyway, because bond markets are challenging for TIF bonds or TERS bonds in any case. You do have three options. You can do a pay-as-you-go, and that's probably the least common because it doesn't generate very much money at the beginning. And just to clarify again, give an example. If you have a piece of, well, let me give you maybe the really simplest example of if you had a large piece of vacant land and a residential developer wanted to come in and he or she wanted to develop that land, they're going to purchase the land, they're going to build streets, they're going to build curbs, they're going to build sidewalks, they're going to build water lines, sewer lines, street lights, everything you need, all the infrastructure that's needed for that subdivision. And then when that subdivision is platted, all of that infrastructure is going to be donated to the city. And that's a huge expense for any developer. In this case, you could, if there was a TIF, if you created if that area, that new subdivision was a TIF or TERS, and you used tax increment financing, you could in fact pay that developer back for the money that he or she spends on the public infrastructure. So if they spend $5 million on water and streets and sewer and so forth and so on, then you set that money aside, that increment aside, so that over the next 10 years or 20 years, they get paid back from the increment that they caused to happen. So they're putting up the money up front. A TERS is not a bank for a developer. It's a way to make a piece of property, a vacant property in a rundown neighborhood, or property in a downtown, which is why we've really talked about it a lot, but it doesn't have to be for a downtown. But a TERS can be very successful because a developer that maybe wouldn't spend money in a place like, oh, well, if I'm going to have to build all these streets and water lines and sewer lines and so forth and so on, parking spaces or a parking garage or a parking lot, sidewalks downtown, but if I'm going to get my money back, then that makes it more attractive to that developer to invest his or her money up front. So it works. Ultimately it's long term. You hope it's an economic development tool, but again, it's not an incentive. It's a way to finance a project, and it helps a developer finance a project. On the other end, you can sell your own bonds. And this is the third option, pay-as-you-go, developer financing. And you could pay for it yourself. For example, not that we're proposing this, but this was just an example that somebody threw out at the one of the meetings last week, the HPC meeting, I think Mr. Dukes. And that was like, well, so we could say we think it's worthwhile, and we think that if we got all of the utility lines buried in the ground. We think that would have enough of an impact on the city that over time it would generate more investment because it had such a dramatic improvement. You figure out what's going to cost us, how much it's going to cost us for this area to put all those lines under the ground. And it's, say, $2 million, which is probably way too low, but say it's $2 million, then you could sell TERS bonds in the amount of $2 million in 20 years, and you'd have to pay it back, $100,000 a year for 20 years. And you hope you have enough money in there. Now, obviously, in all of that, you've got some risk because, gee, what if you don't do that? What if you don't get an increment, or what if the increment's not very, very, very large? Larger cities, sometimes they actually have a problem with values go down, and so then you're stuck with bonds. These are TERS bonds, however. These are not municipal bonds, which is part of the reasons they're not as attractive to investors as city bonds. City bonds are typically supported by the full faith and credit of the municipality. That's not the case with a TERS bond. They're a lot riskier. They're going to carry a higher interest rate, and they're going to have a lot fewer buyers. So the TERS board, if there is a TERS created, there's got to be a board, and that board is the one that would approve whether you do a pay-as-you-go or whether you incur debt or you get private financing from a private sector. These are, kind of mentioned this indirectly, but these funds are used for public improvements only. Again, they're not incentives, they're not funds. It doesn't work like a tax abatement. It works like a tax abatement that you have a benchmark, but not in the fact that they get the money regardless of what they do. It's not for whatever a developer wants to spend it on. Again, using the kind of simple, you've got a residential developer and they want to build a big new subdivision. They can get reimbursed for what they spend on the streets and the sidewalks and the curbs and the street lights and the water lines and the sewer lines and so forth, which is huge to them. But they can't get reimbursed for all the houses that they sell. You can't get reimbursed for that part of it. And so it has to be a public improvement. That's by state law. That's by the state constitution, for that matter, too. That may not be true in every state, but every state that I know of, it's the case. But certainly it's absolutely true in Texas. It's for public improvements only. I guess two last things. One is that I did review this last week in a little more detail with the Historic Preservation Commission, with also with the Main Street Board. Both of those groups voted to recommend that we pursue this. Now, this is a little different from other things because we're not prepared to pass an ordinance right now, and hopefully I've made it clear that it's not a quick just process. You just go create a TERS. You'd have to create a plan, a finance plan, project plan. You've got to think about who would be on a board. Some of those are mandatory. I think the county judge is one. I know the state representative is one, state senator is one, for example. Different folks have to be on that board to have a good oversight and a broad spectrum of representation. And there's some matter of perspective, difference of opinion. In fact, Mr. Paris, since you guys' presentation had some, I think 3 different presentations, and one of the people in that, I don't know if you had a chance, it's an hour and 10 minutes long, and it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but just within that, one speaker said you should get a developer signed up before you create your TERS, and the other one said, oh, you should always create your TERS before you get a developer. So it kind of depends on what you're after. And again, in some cases, you don't have to have a developer. It may be that you just want to do general improvements. The most common TERS project is streets. Not repaving streets, but like building a whole new street that connects into an area, or replace an entire road, or if you're on an interstate highway, you'd be surprised how important it is. If you're a town on an interstate highway and there's no exit, you might as well not be on the interstate highway. So people will create a TERS so they can get enough money to build an exit or an entrance to their town from an interstate highway, because the traffic count goes to waste for economic development purposes if you don't have that sort of thing. So traffic is our roads is a huge thing, and again, probably the most common one in Texas as a use of property. Last thing I want to mention is that, and I've kind of mentioned this in passing, and I know I haven't, at least by emails to you over the last couple of months too. We do have a draft a downtown plan. This is the sort of thing, a TERS, it's not something you want to just do in a vacuum in any case. We do have a downtown plan that's been drafted by our staff work group. Also, probably at your May 14th council meeting, we at least tentatively plan to bring to you a request to hire a consultant to develop a bit more of a detailed downtown plan, especially some traffic engineering work for the downtown area. And so I think this could be the sort of thing that plan could identify areas of special interest for a TERS. What we're after tonight is two things. One is to just educate you on how a TERS works and what TIF actually is, TIF being the financing, and then ask that you give, and it's not an action item on your agenda, I don't think. It's supposed to be not, yes. And that is just to give kind of informal direction to the city attorney to do additional research and work, and then for the rest of us staff, me and my folks, to begin developing a kind of a rudimentary, I guess, project plan and financing plan, just to see what we're talking about for cost and the kinds of things we would like to do. Probably would run that back by the Main Street Board and perhaps the HBC as well, and get their ideas. But short term, we want to see what we get by the way of a master downtown plan, because you don't want to do this without a downtown plan. You don't want to have 3 different plans going 3 different directions by 3 different groups of people or different people. So that's kind of where we are. I hope that made some sense. I'm rambling a little bit, but we're just after to answer any questions you have, to make sure you're comfortable with what it is, and ask your permission to just informally go ahead and proceed with the additional work.
Yeah, I've got a question. It's been brought to my attention that these have in the past been used as partly as an economic development incentive, and the way it was explained to me was that let's say you wanted to renovate an old building, which is what we're trying to get done downtown, that the increased cost, the increased value of the benefit, the incremental increase, then the tax revenues on that represent a source of income over the next 20 years usually.
Right.
And rather than abate that, which is frequently done, that would be abated for a renovation like that, rather than abate it, set up the TIF and then sell a bond backed up by the incremental income for whatever percent you want to do, 50%, 100%, 20%, whatever you want to do. And then that gives the developer some cash up front from his future tax payments that he would otherwise be paying. So it's in essence gives some cash to the developer and makes it easier for the developer to initiate a project. Is this something that can be done with TIF, or
You kind of can, but to clarify, and going back to the pretend-like example, so we don't get anything real, is that residential developer. You can say it's such a valuable project to get this new residential subdivision in town, and you could probably say that here because we could use a new residential subdivision in Paris. That we're willing to give you more than just this or that or whatever. But it still can't be more than the value of the public improvements. Because
it has to be based on the public improvements.
That's correct. It cannot be for anything more than the public improvements. And so, and that protects your municipality, because if the developer spends $2 million on water and sewer and streets and all that stuff again, and he never builds a single house, or he goes bankrupt, or he disappears, the city still owns $2 million worth of sewer and water and streets and so forth. Now, it may be a bunch of streets without any houses on them, but you at least have that basically as collateral. That's also the only reason those bonds would be marketable to the bond market, is if there's something tangible, as opposed to just, I won't name a home builder, but just the home builder's word, I'm going to build a bunch of houses, give me some money. That's not legal, and it's not legal for a reason.
Okay, well, I was just wanting to see if it could be done as a way to make it more
and cities have
desirable.
gotten pretty creative. I remember, in fact, I think it was on that thing that got sent out in the email. Cities can you can, like, an old hotel. This is pretty common in downtowns. There'll be an old hotel. They'll either turn an office building into a hotel, or a hotel into an office building, or they'll just restore an old hotel. And you can use TIF money to replace the sidewalks, to build a parking garage, all of those things that developer would maybe have to do.
So some of the developers' costs then could, based on the amount of work
as long as
he's
the
got to
parking
do.
garage is open to the public and the sidewalks open to the public, that sort of thing. And there's even cases, and these are kind of hard to do, and these are all things you would negotiate under a Chapter 380 agreement. You wouldn't include that in your TIF itself. That's just a financing mechanism. You'd have to actually have a Chapter 380 agreement, which council adopted a policy about Chapter 380 agreements about 4 years ago. And there's some cases where you even could pay for some of the structure if, for example, the first floor of this historic hotel was going to be the city hall. In fact, I recall I negotiated a deal with a hotel builder in Collin County. It was an Embassy Suites, and so we were able to use a certain their conference center so many times a year for free. We were going to put our economic development office in the hotel, rent-free, things like that, and that made it a tax exempt, which also lowered the interest rate that would have to be paid on those. So there's ways to do it, but it's not a loan fund for a developer, no matter how good he or she is or how much you want them to come.
And any project would be approved by the TIF, by the board, and
Projects
then
would be approved by the TIF board,
and
then
ultimately approved by the council.
The economic
right?
development agreements would have to be approved by the city council because it's two separate things. They kind of run together, but it's two very much separate things.
Okay. I've hogged John. Anybody got any questions for?
Well, I do.
Go ahead.
You know, I always thought that TERS or TIF was an economic development tool for revitalization of historic areas. Is that not true?
Well, if it's in conjunction with an economic development agreement, it is. But all by itself, it's a financing tool. Finance is an economic development tool, so you have to have money to do with development. Absolutely.
Okay.
But primarily, it's legally a financing tool. But you have to have financing
So
for
it is a
for
good
development.
thing for if you
Absolutely,
wanted to
it's a good
use
thing.
it as an economic development tool for reinvestment into our historic downtown
Absolutely,
area.
and I am I'm a fan of this being adopted. Whether it takes 2 months or 8 months, I don't know. And I think downtown Paris is the best place for it in our community.
Okay.
I was just using residential as an example of something that's probably not going to happen. so.
Now, of course, I think that would be great since we've got a lot of deteriorating neighborhoods also. But in this regard, I mean, our focus is on downtown. So,
Right.
you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions about this? Okay, we're going to give staff direction to. I'm in favor of moving forward with this because I think it gives us a lot of options.
Okay.
At a minimum,
A plan.
it allows us to earmark some money for downtown. It may not be a lot of money right off the start, but at a minimum, it does that.
Right.
And as you mentioned, there may be some other creative things we can come up with that might be applied to development of downtown revitalization. So, everyone in well,
Yeah.
go
Would it be good to involve Main Street and Downtown Association?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
There are
we'll
partners in
involve them
this.
more and more with the downtown planning that we're doing as well. And again, you'll see that on May 14th, the downtown plan proposal.
All right, so we're in agreement to tell them to instruct,
Proceed. Yes.
move
Please
forward?
do.
Thank you. Okay, next item, number 17, discuss and act on an ordinance creating a vacant building registry. John, you want to discuss this with us?
Yes, sir. We talked about this a little over a year ago. Council was concerned about the fact that it was a little too broad, and we talked about it again December at the council's retreat down at the library. And council instructed me to bring this back with some changes. We did delete a number of the kind of what I think could be argued and certainly perceived as nitpicky. We took out some things about awnings and sconces and I don't know, a lot of architectural features. Well, if they fall and look ugly, you hate that, but they're not probably going to hurt anybody. It's not going to affect the structure of the building. So the standards of care, which is still in the ordinance, were scaled back. So we're talking about a lot of structural things, and I can go into some details, but don't want to take a lot of your time for that, and I can certainly answer any questions you may have. But I think the standards of care are certainly reasonable. Broken doors, broken windows, and structurally sound, that sort of thing. Somebody here mentioned the fact that we want certain structural soundness because and floor plans because if there's a fire, we don't want our firefighters to fall in a hole, or they need to know where what is and what kind of condition it's in, and that's why it's important to have pre-fire planning and pre-fire inspections too. If you've ever been a firefighter, that's a big deal. And the example I gave, trying not to pick on anybody in particular in real life, but residential fires, you don't think about this if you just live in a house and you're not a firefighter, but chimneys are a real danger because you go in the house and you don't know if that chimney is attached to anything or not. If it's just leaning up against a wall and the wall burns down, that chimney can crush a firefighter. So it's important that we know what's in structures and what kind of conditions those structures are in. Another thing that's important to keep in mind is downtown is different from most other neighborhoods in that there's a lot of common walls. And so in a residential neighborhood or even most commercial neighborhoods, so to speak, in Paris anyway, if your building falls down or if your building's full of rats or if your building's ugly or whatever, you can kind of argue, well, that's my business. But if your building catches on fire or falls down and it's connected to one or two or three other buildings, you know it's going to affect your neighbors. We actually had a gentleman here about 2 years ago who was so concerned about his building because he had a sprinkled building, but the building next door to him was not sprinkled and it was a very bad repair. He sold and left town. And so sometimes we focus on the fact that, oh, gee, it's inconvenient for people to have to spend money on their buildings. And I understand that. I don't like spending money on my building either, my house either. But we have to remember this is a code enforcement type of an issue. And always code enforcement, the customer is the person with the property that's taking care of his or her property the best that he or she can. In the case of downtown, the other factor is economic development. It's very important. I think somebody mentioned this too. It's very important, or maybe a couple people did. It's very important for economic development purposes that you have a downtown that looks good, that feels good, that looks like a place you want to invest money. Investors don't go to a downtown just randomly. They don't just pick them out of the sky or pick them out of the blue. It needs to be a downtown that looks good, that feels good, that they think that has a future. It helps to have a plan. It helps to have a TIF, frankly. It helps to have buildings that are at least taken care of. Also, you want to, those buildings are all really valuable resources, and I know some of y'all really feel that more than others, but those old historic buildings are very valuable resources, and I've told y'all this a dozen times. Most of the cities in Collin County and Dallas County and Tarrant County don't have downtowns, and they're just so jealous of Paris. They create downtowns. We built this beautiful downtown in Fairview, Texas. Actually, we had a developer do it for us, but it's like a Disney set. It's not a real downtown because we don't have a real downtown in Fairview. Didn't have a real downtown in Rowlett. A lot of those South Lake, all those places you hear of, that big, nice, fancy, rich places, they don't have a downtown, and they wish they had a real one. We have a real one, and we've got these valuable assets, and we want to encourage people to invest in them. And if you don't want to invest in the property, if you can't afford to invest in the property, we want to encourage you to sell it to someone who does. And ultimately, that's how we get new property owners, that's how you affect your local economy too, is if you get new money into the environment and new money that's moving around from place to place. And once you can get that going, it affects the whole environment. This is not meant to be punitive. There is a fee that's assessed on an annual basis to try to be an encourager. There are the standards of care. One of the things the council also asked that we include in a revised ordinance, which is in there, is we talked about carrots and sticks. I recall I used that phrase last time. There's also a paragraph in there about financial assistance, so that if you say, look, you're telling me that I've got to fix this stuff, but I can't afford it. We want to be able to offer assistance to you. And I'm fairly vague in the ordinance, but we talk about loans and grants and assistance, financial assistance that would be negotiated on an individual basis. We talked about funding, including the budget, and you'll hear this from me when we present the budget to you this July, that we'll have some additional funding in there in the Main Street budget, Sherry Bedford's budget. We have money in there now for some grants. We'll have additional money for grants for this purpose, so that we can't fix everybody's building for them, but if people have a genuine financial need to keep their building safe and up to date and investable, we want to be able to try to help them. And so that's the other end of it. It's not just a do this or else. It's do this, and if you can't, well, then we'll try to help you do this. I think I've probably talked enough already, so I'll just stop at that.
Okay, I had some questions for you, John, and I read this thing through, and it looks like a lot of good work was done on it, but I've got some legal questions, and I've got some other questions as to specifics as to how this is going to work. With the legal question, it defines lawful activity as that for which the structure was built or intended to be used. No building shall be used primarily for storage of personal or business items. Now, this is just in the definition of terms. It's not actually in the, so I don't know whether this The only reference I saw in the rest of it to lawful activity was in a second definition of a vacant structure, which is defined as all lawful activity has ceased or reasonably appears to have ceased for 30 days. So I guess it's a little confusing to me in that regard. Is this in fact, first off, is this in fact what it's saying, that no building will be allowed to be used for storage?
The primary use, the zoning ordinance was changed about 2 years ago, that in the central area, storage, warehousing is not a permitted use in the CA zoning as a primary use. That does not mean that if you live in an apartment down there, you can't put your shoes in the closet. It doesn't mean that if you operate a business, you can't keep your inventory in your basement or in your attic or behind the closet. It doesn't affect that as long as your primary business is retail or residential or restaurant or commercial or whatever it might be within that CA zone. It just means that you can't use a building just to store stuff and nothing else whatsoever.
And that's fine. I want to make sure that's
as Mr. Dukes put it, that there's got to be some humans in there from
Is
time
that
to time.
that's what this
Yes,
is
sir.
saying? Because
Yes, sir.
it's a little confusing in that it says, does it mean, because the lawful activity is that for which the structure was built or intended to be used, does that mean that we have to open a theater in the Grand Theater?
No, it means.
That's what it says.
But the lawful purpose is what's in your zoning ordinance, and your zoning ordinance says what's lawful, and I don't know all the different things that are allowed in the CA zone. It's theaters are allowed, restaurants are allowed, warehousing is not allowed.
But the actual wording in what I have says that, like the First State Bank building downtown would have to be used as a bank according to the wording of what we've got here.
I thought it said or.
No, there's no or in it.
Well, then that just needs to be changed then, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there's no or in it. So there already is a warehouse in the Central District across the street from the farmer's market. How will this ordinance affect that
It doesn't
warehouse?
affect it.
It's not a warehouse, it's a storage.
Yeah. Anytime you make a change like this,
They would
an
grandfather
existing
in.
building is grandfathered in as long as it's in operation, so it won't have an effect on Mary Ann's
Okay.
place.
It doesn't specify any reference to residences, and I drove, there's quite a few residences.
There are quite a
in
few,
this.
and you want more and more.
They're
Residential
vacant, they
properties
would
are-
fall under this. If those residences are vacant, they would legally fall under this. Am I not correct?
Well, you're talking about the building itself.
Yeah. So if they're vacant residents,
and
they
in
would
this
be.
particular area, there's very few single-family houses. This is the central area, not the entire historic district.
There are several.
But there's
I
some.
drove through. There's
yeah, there's
several.
some, and so yes, it does include those. In fact, that was something that the one of the boards, Main Street Board, talked about last week, that whether they wanted to include Church Street in that, and ultimately the decision by that board, committee, was to stay relatively small, at least, with a central area.
So basically, though, if you have a house in the Central District and it's vacant, the city's going to enforce this ordinance on them at $500 for the vacant, is that correct? I mean, the way it's written, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's basically correct. Now, remember, there's exceptions to that. If you have a sale pending, if you have a lease pending, if you've got somebody that's going to be moving in there fairly soon, then you would not have to do that. If it's just sitting there and you say, well, it's a house, so I can leave it vacant for the next 12 years, then yes, you would have to.
Okay, so
but there are those things in it. If there's activity going on, then you're exempted from those things. And there are provisions in there for that.
How will this be enforced on the current buildings that have major problems? And we know the buildings, but there's some buildings that don't even have roofs. And this ordinance will mandate that they put a roof on it, which, again, I'm all for that. But how will this be enforced? Is this going to be enforced on all of the buildings that have every major problem?
It would be those buildings that are in already before the Building Standards Commission. You wouldn't start a separate case for that. That would just be not double jeopardy in a legal sense, but there wouldn't be any point to do that a second time. For example, the apartments over here that have been the subject of the Building Standards Commission orders since before I came here, so for over 6 years ago. You wouldn't do anything with that. Technically, they're supposed to come up with a plan to fix that building and so forth, but that's been going on for years, so nothing would change on that. A number of buildings downtown, I can think of 3 buildings off the top of my head, there's probably more than that are currently subject of ongoing Building Standards Commission cases, so those wouldn't be affected. But
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think
I
of.
mean, ultimately, though, this ordinance gives the city the power to mandate that you put a roof on your building, whether you can afford it or not.
That's right, and that's where it comes in, where we may have to try to do some kind of grant or loan or those kinds of things. Because some people, and that's the thing, you've got people who can't afford to do that, and that's true of some of our residential neighborhoods as well as our commercial areas. And you've got some people who choose not to, and we want to try to distinguish between those two.
Okay. As far as we've got existing regulations that haven't been enforced, I mean, we got broken windows all over, and it seems like we should enforce the things we have as well, vigorously enforce before. I mean, I'm in favor of doing anything to get rid of the vacant buildings and to do it. I'm all in favor of that. I'm just not sure that this doesn't still go a little too far by including the entire central district. It's a large area. What we're really talking about, we're talking about the entire central district, but what we really refer to when we're saying downtown is the central downtown area. You know, those 9 blocks or maybe 12 blocks that constitute the bulk of the historic buildings. And I think this would more effectively be used to apply to that area first, and then because we're going to develop a lot of problems by putting it into the entire central zone. So I had a question, the extent of this, whether this was the best idea or whether we should maybe limit it a little bit more because there's a whole lot of older buildings that aren't even historic that are being used for storage that are blocks away from downtown.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, and all of them will fall under this thing. Every single one of them, they will no longer, I mean, I don't know how we're going to enforce this, and again, that's by limiting it to the downtown area, we would remove most of the problems that it's going to be.
Yeah, let me respond to 3 things.
Yeah.
One is going back to the windows. The ordinances are in place now allow us to require someone to replace or to board up windows to prevent access. So if the window's on the 3rd floor, the 4th floor, the 19th floor, we don't have a 19th floor, then they don't have to fix those. In fact, we have an ordinance, and this ordinance, if it's approved, would repeal an ordinance in place. It actually requires you to board stuff up instead of putting glass in there. And that's something we think it works around town, but we don't want to tell somebody, you must board up that window. Boy, that looks inviting to customers and visitors and the next door neighbors. So that's 2 things as far as the windows. So it is different. This would be all windows, not just the ones that somebody can climb into and sleep or so forth and so on. And then the area, as far as the geographic area, that's just an arbitrary area that you're going to pick regardless. We went with the CA. I recommended CA. We didn't talk about it a whole lot one way or another, just because it's a boundary that already exists. And if you start drawing new boundaries, there's a concern, why'd you include me? Why'd you include him? Why'd you exclude him? So forth and so on. I didn't want to be the author of that kind of a drawing. But yeah, it's an arbitrary boundary in any case. If you want to be big, and they talked about making it bigger the other day, and I said, don't get too big. Kind of the same argument, don't get too big. This is a new ordinance. Really want you to do it, but we want to do it and we want it to work. So that's the reason we use CA. There's nothing magical about that, and I don't know the history of how that was drawn once upon a time.
Again, driving around that district, there's a lot of old tin buildings and things. I mean, you get there's a lot of buildings, even right behind the farmers market area, that are used for storage or they're abandoned, and they're going to come under this ordinance, and they're not even. I mean, yes, I'd like to get a lot of things cleaned up as well, but I see this as out. Once we get outside of the central district, we're going to start having some issues. It's going to be a lot of enforcement. As far as the insurance, it's mandatory, $1 million per occurrence and $2 million per year. What if they can't get insurance? Because I'm not sure that all these buildings are going to be able to get insurance. And what will be the city's response if someone says, I tried to buy insurance, no one will write me a policy?
I'm not an insurance expert. I don't know why they would not be able to get to that. I know we talked about that at the board meeting the other day. This is it's a pretty common thing. The reason for insurance, of course, is, again, same thing. You're really close to sometimes sharing a wall with your neighbors, and you want to make sure that they're insured. If that amounts too big, that's somewhat arbitrary. It's kind of an average of about a dozen ordinances
I'm
that
just
I looked
thinking,
at. but,
some of these buildings that are
um,
in real bad disrepair, I'm not sure they're insurable. Maybe they are. I'm not an insurance agent.
Yeah, and that's kind of in the exemptions, I don't know that would be an issue, but if it is, if it's physically impossible to do something, then it's physically impossible to do that thing, and that's cause for an exemption, which is, granted by the city manager. So, yeah, if somebody shows me, look, I talked to 3 insurance companies, all said, you can't buy it, nobody will sell it to you, that'd be good enough.
I also noticed that the annual registration fee is $500 regardless, and it increases $50 every year that you own the building and keep
Right.
it vacant. A multi-story building, it's $500, or a tiny little piece of, one little tiny piece of the downtown area, it's also $500. Should there be some adjustment for square footage?
There can be. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know any other cities that do it that way. The idea is that you're trying to encourage people. Again, you're going to spend $500 anyway. Why don't you spend it to fix something instead of just giving it to us? Another thing, not that it matters a whole lot, but I didn't mention this earlier, is whatever funds, whether it's $1,000 a year, or $1,100 a year, whatever it is, that all does stay in downtown. In fact, we would recycle that money, we hope, to give those grants. That's how we'd pay for those grants. And so, you theoretically could get your money back. Yeah, that's an argument you could certainly make. I don't have a strong preference either way. You can get kind of complicated that way if you make it too big. But yeah, that's just kind of the whole, just to get people's and the size of a building doesn't necessarily that doesn't judge the resources of the owner. It doesn't even, unfortunately, with some of these old buildings, it doesn't really reflect the values of the buildings either. Some of the smaller buildings, if they're really well taken care of and actively used, they may be worth a lot more money than the big ones, especially a couple of our big ones.
And I read that this is going to be now a criminal offense if you don't. I mean, it's misdemeanor. I understand,
that's
but
kind of
it'll be a misdemeanor every single day. There will be a new misdemeanor that you don't fix it. So, that's what it says.
No, that's true, and Stephanie can answer that in more detail. That's true of every code we have.
Okay.
That's the same code you have if you don't mow your grass that's 12 inches tall. So. It is a Class A misdemeanor, but maybe it lets the city attorney kind of explain that.
A Class C misdemeanor that's a fine-only offense. One advantage actually for the alleged violator of it being a criminal offense, and be clear, it's a criminal offense the same way a parking ticket or a traffic ticket or not mowing your grass is a criminal offense. These things, even on conviction, they're not picked up on a criminal background check on the NCIC, TCIC.
You don't get a prison number or your photograph.
Nobody's
or
going
like
to
that,
jail. But there are a lot of due process protections involved with it being a criminal case that aren't necessarily true. I don't know how many of you have ever gotten a red light camera ticket and tried to appeal that. That's stacked against you. You've got the due process provisions going in on a criminal case, even a Class C misdemeanor.
If the building's owned by a partnership or a corporation, who would get cited with the violation?
Well, yeah, we would send it to the registered agent. Who the defendant would be, we'd work through that as we move along.
Okay, well, those are most of the questions I had, and I've monopolized John once again, so I'll let everybody else ask any questions you have.
Well, I think it's time that we either give up trying to clean up our beautiful historic downtown, or we set some standards, hack some people off, but do it. It's now or never. This has gone on for 25 or 30 or 40 years. We have to do something or just give up and say, oh, well, there's boarded up windows, there's cracked windows, there's holes in the floor that our firefighters can fall through. I support this ordinance because our downtown is ugly, except for spots here and there where caring owners have spent money and cleaned up. Somebody that spoke in the public forum gave me the impression that that person has a warehouse that they use. even though there's already an ordinance against that. And I just don't see why we can't either just give up or let's do something. We can't water it down. We can't milquetoast it and it accomplish anything. If you can't afford to own a building, sell it. I can't afford to own a luxury car because I can't afford to have the oil changed on it. I once in my youth bought a car that was snazzy and all that, and I loved it. But you know what? Every time I drove it into the Volvo place, they were just ready to, empty my pocketbook. And I soon found out a good Chevy or Ford was what I could afford. If you can't afford one of these historic buildings, I've lived in a historic house. You pour money down a rat hole sometimes. But with persistence, we got that house to be a showplace. And our downtown could be there, but not when we have warehouses, we have buildings that are full of maybe enticing antiques, but they're never open. We have an ugly place here, an ugly place there, a beautiful place there. Let's try to get it consistent. I support this ordinance.
Well, of course, I've lived in the downtown area for 2/3 of my life, and I'm old. So, I'm very passionate about downtown area, and I echo a lot of the sentiments that have been said already about preserving downtown. And in fact, am so pleased with going forward on this TIF zone. I do have a couple of sticking points on this ordinance, and one has to do with the criminal charges. For some reason, I can't wrap my mind around that, and I think that if it's a civil offense, then, fine the dog out of them. Put teeth into it and fine the dog out of violators, and I don't know if you can fine them without it being a misdemeanor. I'm not an attorney. But, it scares me to think that somebody can rack up a bunch of misdemeanors that may turn into a felony because of broken windows. I mean, that is just one of the, and maybe I'm not connecting the dots well here, and I would accept that. But right now, the criminal aspect of violation is a little bit of a sticking point for me. And the other thing, too, is the insurance limits appear to be too high. And I've heard from several folks that you can't get insurance written on an old building that's this high. Now, I've also heard this evening that, you can get anything written if you're willing to pay the price. And like I said, those are my two sticking points with regard to this entire ordinance, but I do support it.
Just to address your issues on the criminal issue, these are never going to be felonies. These are never going to be anything more than Class C misdemeanors. Even if you've got a bunch of them, you're just going to have several Class C misdemeanors. It's not going to enhance, to bump up to a higher level offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know that the buildings, as Mr. Godwin pointed out, are so close that when the structural integrity of one building, because it's been vacant, and we know that vacant buildings deteriorate at a much more rapid speed than a building that's inhabited. If that structure's roof falls and it can affect the structural integrity of the building next to it. And I just don't think it's fair for somebody who has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a building and the renovation and the inventory to be worried about a neighbor next to them that may not ever visit the building, may not ever clean the gutters, which will cause water to stand and the roof to collapse. I mean, I certainly see the need for this. I really, really see the need for this. But again, I have those two sticking points. And
Okay. Anyone have any other comments about this? Mr.
Yes,
Tornado?
I support this wholeheartedly. And when I moved to Paris 60 years ago, how the downtown was just great. You know, everything was happening downtown, and it's kind of really deteriorated, and we need to go forward with this. Now, I visited a couple of towns around here. I was in Sulphur Springs the other day. Went downtown, eat downtown. People were eating, tables outside, kids on the plaza playing, taking pictures, and having a good time. I'd like to see that here in Paris, and we can do it. You know, and there's buildings around. Everybody knows where they're at. Now, I got one question about the grandfather. Will these buildings be grandfathered in that are there now? I mean, if they had an issue with them.
Not the structures, just if like, again, Mary Ann, I forget Mary Ann's last name, that has the storage building. It's an active use, and she's been using it since out a long time. That use is grandfathered, but not any deterioration
Okay.
to a specific
What
building.
if they wouldn't do anything about it? Could you like get them to maybe tint the windows and repaint it just to make it all look good? You know, I don't know if that's a good idea. No, I think it would be. Okay, now got another question. There's a building down here by the Market Square that's got a tree coming up in it. What about that building?
That's a building that's been to the Building Standards Commission, so that's being addressed otherwise already.
I mean, it's been here a while, and there's no roof or anything. And what these strong winds? What if it took one side of one of those downs and hurt somebody? Who would be responsible? The owner of it?
The owner would be. The only concern we have as a city is did we take due precautions to protect the streets or the public sidewalks, that sort of thing.
Well, I'd like to see a state do precautions on that. Because
Yeah,
besides it looking bad, to me, it's dangerous.
Absolutely.
But I agree thoroughly with this, and I think we should go forward 100% with it.
Have any comments? Anybody else?
I just have a couple of things. Of course, downtown is one of my dear and things to my heart. But some of the issues that I had have already been addressed either by Linda or the mayor. I guess one of my questions not really, really clear is who's going to be overseeing this? Is it still going to be code enforcement?
It will be. It will be code enforcement and fire marshal, which both work for the fire chief.
Okay. And then my next question, with it being a criminal offense, and I don't have any problems as long as it's not turning into a felony. It seems like we already have trouble getting cases through the court, through code enforcement when they file cases. How much more is this going to back up municipal court?
Well, I don't know the number of what the case volume is going to be.
Yeah, we hope people comply.
Well, that's the hope, yeah.
And I think perhaps the lack of ability to get things through the court has been overstated a bit.
Okay.
But there are some procedural, like I was saying, with a Class C misdemeanor, there are due process protections that some of that keeps them from going through as quickly as what you might wish. Just writing someone a ticket or filing a case doesn't mean that, we can take the money out of their wallet the next day. It doesn't work that
Yeah, I
quickly.
understand that.
There's a timeline for those.
Yeah, I understand that.
I don't foresee it being a huge backlog.
Okay.
And just let me clarify, I'm assuming y'all get this, but just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, because I rambled a lot before. This is only a violation if you just refuse to do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Having an empty building just means that if you approve this tonight, come January 31st of next year, you'd either have to have the thing active, or you'd have to have a plan immediately, or you'd have to pay the $500. So that's still not until the end of January that would even happen. But the fine would only be, it's just like, I'm just not going to do it, and you choose not to do it. That would be that you could get the fine.
Okay. And if somebody's having a hard time paying that $500, can they work something out with the city as far as I can pay $250
Well,
now?
that's between the judge and that person. The judge
I'm
is
talking
responsible
about
for
to
that.
register.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about to register.
No, I don't think so. I think there's always things about indigency, especially in law today. So there may be some exceptions to that, but for the most
just
part,
playing
no.
devil's
Because again, the
advocate
idea is kind of like Ms. Portugal said: if you can afford to own a building, then you should be able to afford to take care of it. And if you can't, hopefully you can find somebody who can take care of it, for you.
I think.
I know that's easier said
we
than
need to
done
do
for some
something.
folks, but.
What I'm hearing, though, every reference is to the historic buildings downtown, and I'm 100% in agreement that this ordinance
Yeah,
would be
again-
wonderful. My fear is that the spectrum of this is, are y'all going to go to those buildings behind the farmer's market and say, okay, $500 for this building, $500 for this building, unless you want to sell it to somebody who wants to rehabilitate it. There are buildings that are falling under this ordinance that probably shouldn't. I mean, I think maybe it would be a challenge, or maybe we're just not going to enforce it on certain people, and that's bad business too.
Yeah, you don't do that when you start.
I think the central downtown district is what we're all talking about. We're in complete agreement. I could not agree more that we need to have structural stability. We need to take steps to make these things, to make it less desirable to keep them vacant, and hopefully cause them to become occupied and increase the value of everybody's. But if we're not careful, we're going to pass an ordinance that is so far reaching that it's going to, like say a house in the central district will fall under this ordinance. You're going to find the person who owns a little one-story house in the central district, and they can't sell it because nobody wants to buy it, and all of a sudden they got a $500 fine, and that's. Again, I'm in complete agreement, but everything I'm hearing is about the central historical buildings, and yet I'm looking at what we're about to do, which is this reach into the entirety of the district.
I wish I'd thought to bring a map of the central area, because I don't know that. I know it's smaller than the historic district, which is why we picked it out.
Well, I drove
Yeah, like nonprofit, because, one of the places that the mayor's talking about behind Farmers Market, would they not be a nonprofit? Christians in Action?
Well,
I don't think there's a roof on that building either.
Yeah, regardless of your function, you're still supposed to take care of your property, just
Right,
like any
I
other.
agree.
The
but
central
I'm just
district goes
saying.
all the way to CVS to the east, including all of that area. That's the central district. It goes north to Pine Bluff, and Mr. Dukes probably can tell me a little more about it, but it involves both sides of Pine Bluff over there as it gets close to North Main. It goes over to the west and then goes south at 3rd or 4th Street, I forget.
The historic district?
No, the central district that will be affected by this ordinance.
I'm not sure where the central business district lines are.
Well, I can tell you that it was not my expectation that we would go all the way east to CVS. That's not the purpose at all, absolutely.
And I know that's simply my point, is I think we've got to be careful. Again, I'm all in favor of this ordinance. I would vote for it in a heartbeat, but I'm just trying to think about the property owner in some other, who happens to be in the central district, who really isn't in a historical area at all, or has a building that's just a ramshackle building that he's using for storage. That's my problem with this.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with approving something, one suggestion would be to adopt the ordinance without a map yet, and then ask the Historic Preservation Commission to make a recommendation to you. So you could go ahead and adopt the ordinance so that nothing goes wrong. Okay. And then they could develop, I'll meet with them next month, they could develop a map that makes sense.
Okay, because I just want to do this
like I said,
right.
We used it for convenience sake because it already existed.
Yeah.
But they're certainly competent to draw the map, and we can go from there and bring that back to you next month.
Okay. Mr. Dukes, you've been standing up there a long time. You must want to say something to us. Go ahead.
Thank you. Couple of things. One, doctor just gave me a view of the central business district, and it's much bigger than the historic district. So maybe the consideration should be for the commercial historic district.
No problem with that. Yeah.
So, you might want to consider that. I suspected that this item would be pretty contentious, and there's probably people out there that want to speak against it. What I would urge the council to do, if you don't feel comfortable passing this, maybe you vote to table it until some things get refined a little bit better. But That said, first of all, I want to thank the council because I believe you have taken action in the past to basically, and I'm not sure where it stands legally, but take possession of the Bedford Apartments, which is the building with the trees growing out of the roof. And there is a plan for what you would do with that. That's a perfect example of an owner who has a building that either they cannot afford or are unwilling to do what needs to be done to that building. And it either needs a huge, major renovation or it needs to be demolished, one of the two. If the city acquires that property, they'll have the opportunity to make those options available to someone to do something with that property. If people can't afford the buildings that they've got downtown, they need to think about selling them. I know that there are a lot of people that have buildings in the downtown historic district because they were able to buy them cheaply and they're using them for storage, and essentially their rental for that is what they're paying in taxes on the building. And that's pretty low. But if you have a building in downtown that you renovate and increase the value of it, the tax revenue to the city is going to be much higher. So there's an incentive for the city to do something about this issue. The other thing I would ask you to do, I'm pretty sure that everybody here has traveled at least in the contiguous counties around us, 2 or 3 over maybe. I want you to just, you don't have to close your eyes, but you might want to, and just think of McKinney. What do you envision? What do you see? Think of Sulphur Springs. What do you envision and what do you see? Think of Clarksville. What do you envision? What do you see? Think of Hugo, Oklahoma. What do you envision? What do you see? Now, of those 4, when you think of downtown Paris, which vision are you closer to? One of the things that I think probably needs to be considered, I know this is a vacant building ordinance, and that's a huge problem. But I'm wondering if you should take time to refine this, because the reality is the requirement for insurance, and I'll tell you, I did some checking, liability insurance for personal injury and death is available. It's not generally available from insurance companies that write other kinds of insurance. It is a specialty line of insurance, which can be acquired through many of our local insurance independent agents. And depending on who they get that insurance written from, for $1 million per incident, $2 million aggregate, and depending, it generally goes based on the square footage of the building. What I've learned in my research is it may be for most of our downtown buildings anywhere from $500 to $2,500 a year for that insurance coverage. So it is available. One of the things that those carriers might do is they might send an insurance inspector, and the rate may be different based on the condition of the building, which goes to the point that if somebody's maintaining their building and they're doing a good job at it, their rate's going to be a whole lot less. The other thing is we have occupied buildings that aren't being maintained. And I think this, in conjunction with the stuff that currently exists in code enforcement, all needs to be meshed together, and we need to make sure that all of the buildings in our, at least in our commercial historic district, are maintained, they're taken care of, and they're not allowed to become hazards to the general public. Now, one of the things that, I got a building 2 blocks away, and when I bought it, I don't want to tell you how deep The second floor was in pigeon excrement and dead pigeon carcasses. The windows had been boarded up, but pigeons are real dumb. They're smart enough to find their way through an opening this big to get into a building, but they're not smart enough to find their way out. All of the buildings that you see around town with the second and third floor broken windows, I guarantee you, you've got a huge problem with pigeon poop and pigeon carcasses in those buildings. As long as it's fresh and wet, it's not a health hazard. Once it dries out and somebody goes in and tries to clean it up, it is a health hazard. So by not addressing the problem, we're creating a huge potential health risk for people down the road. This whole thing, the TIF, everything, you have to look at it as being an economic engine, and all of these pieces are kind of like compound interest. Each one of them is going to build on the other and make that economic engine run faster. So I would urge you to pass this resolution, but if you've got heartburn with it, I would urge you to at least table it and work out those issues that you have and bring it back and pass it. Thank you.
Okay, well, anybody else have any discussion on this? What's the feeling of the council? Like I say, I think we're all in agreement, every one of us, that we would like to see the bulk of this passed. My concern is the scope of it, and maybe limiting it to the Central Historic District would solve that problem. But I think we're going to create a lot of problems by extending it to the entirety of it. I have one other thing I didn't mention. I think the people that are in this district probably have a right to be notified so they can show up and tell us about it. And I don't have, was every person notified about this?
No.
To me, this is a pretty sweeping thing we're about to do. And again, my inclination, and I'm open for discussion on this, my inclination would be to table this to put the scope of it in the area we're really talking about, the historic downtown buildings, and figure out how we will do that. And if there's any questions with the criminal versus the civil liability, if we can get some.
Can I ask a question? Would it be easier to table it and come back with it with the way that you were suggesting, with the area being
I think
completely defined, or should we go ahead and pass it and then bring it? I mean,
no.
it seems.
I'd like you to pass it. I'd like you to pass it and substitute the historic district down number 1 for the CA. That's the other option that we talked about amongst ourselves quite a lot. It's not as wide. It's a little bit farther north and south. And then refer that also to the Historic Preservation Commission if they want to make a change, or if they think that's okay, then they won't bring it back to you. But I'm afraid, we've been talking about this for a year and a half, and I don't mean to be disrespectful or argumentative, but I really hate to see you not approve it, because I'm afraid something will go wrong, and we don't meet for 3 more weeks, and then after that you've got an election, and at least 2 of y'all aren't going to be here because of term limits. And I just really hate to see this go down. As far as the criminal thing, every code we have is that way. And so for whatever reason, we focused on that word. Again, we're not making criminals out of people. You have to pay a fine. Our zoning is that way. Code enforcement's that way. Everything, all of our stuff that goes to municipal court is it's a fee only. Fine. That's the way you fine folks. You don't file a lawsuit on them. It's not a criminal. It's not a civil case. Crime sounds scary, but that's just really a kind of a misnomer or a red herring, I think. Certainly the insurance, if you want to cut the insurance in half or even get rid of the insurance, it's not going to hurt my feelings any whole lot. I just really would just like you to really prove something tonight, because I'm really afraid something's going to go wrong in 3 weeks.
Does the city have to register our buildings?
I don't think we have any buildings that empty buildings downtown except for the.
Will you pay the fine for the Grand Theater?
What's that?
Will you pay the fine for the Grand Theater?
Well, there's not a fine. We have, we would have to register it and give ourselves $500, but I don't know that serves a whole lot of purpose for Gene to write a $500 check to the city, but if you want him to, we can sure do that. But it'd be paying it to ourselves. We're already talked about, as I said, putting additional money in the budget, which council will have to approve, but that would be far in excess of $500 to help pay to remediate some of these building issues. So we would pay more than $500 if it's approved.
Well, what's the will of the council here? You would suggest we pass this for the Central Historical
It's the
District?
Historic District Number 1, I believe is the official name of that. HD1. And again, we had talked about that as an option in any case. And then if you want to reduce the insurance, I think that's an arbitrary number to some extent anyway. If you want to cut that in half, I think that's reasonable.
Or we could do that as an amendment in the future.
We can always
I
do that in the
guess.
future,
Yeah.
that's right. We've got until January 31st to do those kinds of things.
Yes,
I vote to approve it.
in the Central Historic
Right,
District,
Central
not
Historic,
this.
yes. No, the Central Historic.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No.
Is anyone opposed?
No one was.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was fun. Next, number 18, we're going to convene into executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the governmental body has received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the governmental body and with which the governmental body is conducting economic development negotiations, or two, to develop the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect described by subdivision 1 as follows: American Spiral Well. Okay, it is now 7:35 and we are heading to executive session. Out of executive session, we met with the PEDC and discussed restructuring the incentive agreement for American Spiral Well. All right, item number 20. Consider and approve future events. Yes, ma'am.
I do. I have a future event. I've been on the council for almost a year now, and we've got a housekeeping item I think that we're entitled to do, and that is evaluate the 3 staff members that are within our purview. And I think we're kind of late in doing such, and I recommend that we have a special meeting so that we can tend to the evaluation of the 3 city staff members and just kind of finalize and tie up that loose end.
When is that usually done, John?
It's been done anywhere from May through early October. So
And when was
last time was in September, seems like.
Yeah, I heard January, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So we are kind of overdue.
Yeah, we're kind of overdue, and so, since we've got the canvassing of the election on the 14th, 14th, which would be the next regular meeting, I'm proposing maybe meet the week before on the 7th, just for that purpose. A special meeting so that we can tend to that housekeeping issue.
Okay. Can we do that?
Chirp, chirp, chirp.
We can.
Okay to me. Okay to me.
I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, if the last one was in January, it's like almost 18 months later.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Sure, for our annual evaluation.
What did you say?
Correct.
So that would be
You
what,
heard
May
me.
7th?
7th.
May 7th?
Mm-hmm.
That's
For
the
a
same night as
special-
planning and zoning commission, so we would probably meet in a different conference room, but we can let you know that.
Okay.
Where?
Okay. What about the 30th of April, next week?
I
That
think
way-
the 7th works fine. I mean, I'm gonna be here anyway, so.
Okay. And perhaps we can be sent the evaluation forms via email so we can look them over and kind of familiarize yourself. And I apologize because, I mean, this year has been a real learning curve for me. So, wow. I'm going to need extra time to look and ponder and, give, my feedback in a productive way.
Okay. And apparently we need to, before we close the meeting, we need to make I make a motion that we accept the changes to the agreement as were stipulated by Mr. Paris also during the PEDC meeting.
Second.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, any other future business? One other thing I had, a constituent contacted me and just a thought, suggested whether or not we might want to consider putting speed bumps around some of the parks. I don't know. I know a lot of cities have things like that, and apparently their concern was Bywaters Park. I don't mean Bywaters, I mean Wade Park. But apparently, what was some of the increased traffic? I don't know. Is that something we would send to the traffic commission? To the traffic commission?
You would, and just. I'm sure you know the difference, but just to clarify, speed humps are against the rules because speed humps are those that tear your car up.
Yeah.
You just put those in parking lots. So it would be that's a speed bump. A speed hump or a speed cushion would be the other one. So,
okay.
And we do have provisions for those. We talked about putting it at that street that's got the apartments that's running through it like crazy.
Because we're getting more kids that are playing, hopefully are, playing at our parks. But I mean, we're run it to the traffic commission, see what their opinion is around not just any park that they might view it as a public safety issue. All right, any other business? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Sir, thank you.